Jess, we are on, what is this, episode 4 here of the mountain, the Maslow Mountain, the hierarchy of needs mountain specific to now business. And one thing that we see, let me put my glasses on because I can't see you. Oh, there we go. There you are. Hi,
The
Jess.
signs that Adam has finally admitted to himself that he's gotten a little bit older.
If you're not watching on YouTube, now see blurry Jess and I see Jess. Hi, Jess. Okay, so here, let me
I
get
love
back to
clarity.
how easily distracted I can be. Jess, we see this all the time in coaches is their language when it goes out to the world is way too big.
Mhm.
Their marketing message does not land on the mountain, if you will, the Maslow Mountain, on where their avatar is. And what we want to do by the end of this podcast is to teach them, share with them, coach them, the listeners, on how to build marketing that works without you. And that's going to be the key phrase here is how do we get your marketing to work without you? Problem though, if your marketing does not land with the avatar where they are on the Maslow Mountain, you're screwed.
Exactly. I mean, it sounds simple, but the simplicity is the part that most people struggle with in this concept
Yep.
because we know all the way back when we first started explaining the mountain, 4 episodes ago, that people like to speak from where they are and they like to speak to where they're going. And so there's a lot of aspirational big language, and I would say that this episode, which is probably the middle of our arc because I bet we'll end up around 7 of these, is probably the pinnacle, like if we're getting over the hump or the hurdle of the difficulty level of cleaning up your language so that way it becomes easier after this.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for this conversation because I do think that this is where when you and I engage with high level, high ticket coaches, struggle the most. We
Well,
see those struggles really appear.
yeah. So let me let's go back a little bit. So episode 1 was all about what the Maslow Mountain is. So if you need to go back and
Hmm.
listen to that, go refresh yourself, go listen to that one. Number 2 episode was all about what is the payoff? What is the identifiable payoff that individual avatar needs based on where they are on the mountain? And number 3, last time, Jess, was all about the messaging problem, right? Different from where we were last time, which was just identifying the messaging. Now you have clearly identified the messaging that needs to go out, and now we need to attach that to your marketing. And
Right.
that we're going to talk about today, because if you haven't done steps 2 and 3, go do that before you continue to listen to this, because outside of that, you're going to be lost. And
Right. Well, this
maybe
is going from internal positioning and language to now how do you turn it external?
that's right. Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into this. So
Okay.
marketing, Jess, this is some language that we use, marketing versus performing. Let's talk about that.
Mm, yeah. Well, marketing is a clear and consistent message that becomes the staple of what you're known for. So it is what the public thinks of you almost in terms of reputation. And that's kind of the way that I like to think about it is a consistent message that is associated with you.
Yep.
If you don't have that, then I feel like most of the time we would say that somebody is performing, meaning they're trying to tweak their language, their marketing, their messaging to fit the moment, to fit the room, to fit the space. So there's a level of performance there versus consistency
Mhm.
of messaging and reputation.
Yeah. Well, and we can go back to identifying why this happens is because if you don't understand your messaging to create the marketing, you're going to continue to perform, right?
Mhm.
If you don't know where your avatar is on this mountain, you're going to continue to perform because you want people to see you versus you should desire to have people seek you versus just see you. And that's a big difference between being out there. I've been there. I've truly sat on that seat going up the mountain, down the mountain, I'm all over the mountain. Actually got stuck on the side of a mountain one time, Jess. I was like, oh, this is it. This is a very peaceful peaceful space. I was sweating on the side of the mountain because I was actually stuck. I couldn't figure out how I was gonna get down.
You are
Anyway,
hilarious.
yeah, it was bad. And that was right after Dana said, "Hey, be careful on that mountain," because she knows I
Mhm.
little rambunctious. Anyway, but let's talk about this because this can land with your emails. This can land with your social media. This can land with your YouTubing. This can land with your podcasting, whether a hosting or a guest. You can step on there and perform over and over and over because if you don't have clarity on your messaging that can then create the marketing performance for this and be known for who you are, you'll perform over and over and over.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with really clear language there, the difference between see and seek. I
Hmm.
mean, that's what we're getting at in this concept of marketing versus performing is performance means, "Hey, look at me," not, "Hey, this is what my stuff can do for you."
Hmm.
And so we don't want people seeing you. We want people seeking your outcome, your payoff, your solution to their problem. And you can be the attractive character for this so people can see you out in the world because, nobody's going to buy what they don't know exists. But at the same time, we want them actively looking for your solution, not actively looking for you to solve things in a unique way, in a performative way,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of that differentiator of see versus seek or marketing versus performance
Mhm.
that almost I would say almost everybody struggles with until they get coached up in it.
Yeah. And let's go back to some simple language here that we've heard before and we've been coached up before on is when you do have good messaging, when you do have good marketing, excuse me, and um, you're not seeing the return on your marketing that you want, you will get tired of your marketing before your market gets tired of your marketing. And
Well,
that happens so frequently.
we see this a lot with people who are trying to double down, especially on social media. I mean, it goes across any channel or any platform that you're on. You are going to see 100% of your content, but the algorithm, whether it's an email one, whether it's a social media one, whether it's a paid ads one, it doesn't matter, doesn't guarantee that your audience is going to see 100% of your marketing.
Right.
And I mean, the averages have changed over the years. And
Mm.
now the algorithm on social media is less than 20% likelihood that people are going to see your content if it's high quality, high engaged content. And
Right.
it could be that no one sees it because the algorithm doesn't think that it's good.
Right.
And that's the key to understand is that when your marketing lands with people because of where it is positioned language wise and you know leveraging that messaging, then you're going to have a great return on it on your energy and time investment here at 20%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
And that's where I think most people give up on marketing way too fast, or they believe that they need to hire out marketing way too fast
Mm.
because they're bored with it. They've done it and they aren't seeing the results they want from it because they see 100% of it, but they don't their people are not landing with it.
Yeah. It's so fascinating and so true that I mean, it's we get bored, right?
Yeah,
We get bored, and yet the avatar, at least 100% of it, hasn't even seen your stuff, and
exactly.
that's why I actually don't. This is a whole nother podcast, but I don't necessarily believe that social media is the right approach. Sometimes I don't. Social media is good for what it is, but we learned a long time ago that that is borrowed media, right? And
Mhm.
borrowed media from that standpoint can become a good machine over time if you have the right avatar watching you, which is a little sneak peek of the avatar problem, which is episode number 5. But we're not
Mhm.
going to talk about that right now. Is just we know that the job here in the marketing space is to attract the right avatar because the messaging lands. And if you can build a database with the right avatar and you can control the marketing goes out to that database, now you have a collected, correct group of people receiving the right marketing that a higher percentage will now start to raise your hand. And that's what we want to talk about is How do we build marketing that will work without you? This is the machine component now.
Well, and I love that you brought up owned versus borrowed media, because I think that's a huge piece of this. Is a lot of times people will double down on borrowed media, which is something like socials, because you don't own the platform, you
Right.
don't own the audience, you just collect followers. And you don't have a way of staying connected to them that you own or operate. So that's why we call it borrowed media. Most people will lean into that first in order to build up their owned media.
Right.
But I think the key strategy here is truly create consistency in your owned media and then invite people to it using borrowed.
So good.
And that's not a hard thing. And so the reason I say this is, if you can create consistency, and a perfect example is this podcast. We record one episode a week. That's consistent. It's not 3 posts a day or 5 or 7 stories a day on Instagram or anything like that. This is one episode a week that we deliver in audio and video format. We have a newsletter and a blog that pairs with it. So now you've got written format. Those are all there's borrowed platforms like YouTube, but we still own the video content that we can produce in other ways.
That's right.
We borrow the mechanism of an email delivery platform, but it's all email that we write. Our blog is ours on our website. So we started with the owned ecosystem, and then when we feel like the time is right and ready and we want more eyeballs on it, or we want to invite more in, that's where we can transition and build out something simple. So, this is where you'll hear lead magnets and funnels and things like that, to invite people into an already existent, consistent ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. That is the piece that people miss when building the machine is we'll keep picking on social media. Social media says, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to go start my own coaching business." Great. Love that
Okay.
idea. And I'm actually going to follow I Love Coaching's blueprint. Even better idea. What they do then, Jess, is they'll go jump into their social medias. And I say that
Hmm.
plural because it could be Facebook, could be YouTube, could be Snap, could be TikTok, whatever it is. And they say, "Wow, I've already got 5,000 followers. That's who I'm going to go after." Now, that's not the approach that we're talking about here, you all. And that's where we fail, is because the marketing that you have established isn't necessarily for all of those people. You've got to go out and be seen versus, I'm sorry, have people seek you versus just go out and be seen. And that's why we like owned media first. We
Hmm.
can do this. We can establish the marketing and the language and the problem solving here. And then we know that those listening, we know that those reading our emails, we know that that will land, because that's going to be the machine that we build and develop. All of our stuff is for that, Jess. Even our upcoming challenge, sellable offers, is for the avatar that we will serve.
Exactly. Well, and that's why I mentioned lead magnets, funnels, and things like that, which we can talk about for a minute here. But the key is, when you start with your own stuff and you create consistency around the own stuff, it makes the lift of inviting people into it much easier than trying to start with figuring out messaging and marketing on a borrowed platform, and then it flopping or not landing and not having any way to bring people into your world.
Yeah.
So a great example of this is a coach that you and I have worked with in the past, had a specific reel go viral, multiple millions of views, grew their page massively, and they were trying to use AI automations and a team to like DM people and close people and all these things. Well, a competitor reported them for whatever reason, and their Instagram was shut down for weeks.
Yeah.
So suddenly this massive audience that they'd gained so much traction with was wiped out in an instant when they couldn't log in. And they had no backup. They had no owned media, even though we had coached with them and we had told them, "Hey, leverage the success on borrowed platforms to get people into your owned world."
Yep.
They ignored that philosophy and spent tons of time, energy, and money trying to get this Instagram back, because they felt like their business was stagnated because they had nothing to show for what they had done.
Right. Scary.
And that is why marketing is so important. Again, we're deviating slightly, but it's related. Is you don't have to do all the platforms and hire a marketing team. That's not what we're saying. We're saying find your messaging, be consistent in your own space, and then you can leverage borrowed spaces to grow that. And then if your account is shut down or a server is down or whatever, you still have everybody's data that has raised their hand and said, I want to be in your world.
Right.
And those are the people who are more likely to seek you than just see you. And
That's right.
that's the whole kind of ball of wax that we're getting at here.
And we can let's go back into the machine itself here for a second, Jess. And you started to touch on it a second ago. We track. We have March, April. I'm assuming we'll have May here at the end of the month. Email data, right?
Mhm,
Email data that we send out emails, the open rate and the click through rate. And I want the listener to hear this. When your messaging is accurate, when your messaging is accurate, and then the marketing lands with the messaging to the right avatar, we now have watched our open rates go from sub 20% to in excess of 65% open rate.
mhm,
Okay, pause for a second and let's just digest that. So nearly a 40% increase because the messaging was right and the machine, which we turned on in an email form, which has been running for a while, had the right subject line. Right is just meaning that the messaging was correct. We have built brand recognition, so people trust the brand now. And the language inside of the email messaging
mhm,
was the right avatar. Okay. So it jumped up to 60, it's almost 67% was the April open rate, right? Right. Let's go back to March for a second. So inside of March, we had, I believe it was 54 clicks, right?
mhm,
So of all that was going out, we had 54 clicks. Okay. That's great. That's a good click rate. Next month, which was April, because the marketing was consistent and the messaging was accurate, we had 244 clicks.
mhm,
So this is the machine that we're talking about here is when you build this marketing component, when you build a machine that reaches out to the data of the right avatar and the messaging is right and the consistency is right, we even increase the consistency a little bit from March to April. You will see the ROI that you expect as it relates to building the brand and building the awareness around the problem that you solve.
right. And those are, we're not telling you're doing it wrong if you don't have a 67% open rate or anything like that. But hear what we're
Oh,
saying
work
of Yeah. Hear what we're saying in terms of messaging matters.
yeah,
And that's why the next episode talking specifically about Avatar is so important too. Because the other thing is I would much rather have a higher percentage open rate of a smaller email list
yes,
than a larger email list and a lower open rate because we know that we've got the right people in the list. And
yeah,
again, that's why I think it's so valuable to build a list from something you own, not starting with the borrowed. And
that's right.
so, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, this is a lot, this is changing my strategy, whatever, know how easy it is. I am notorious for doing something kind of as an early adopter, whether it's you know, using a new AI tool or doing something else, and I will have people ask me, "Oh, how did you do that? Can you teach me? Can you write it down? Can you show me whatever?" So I've gotten to the point now where I have my AI partner write down the steps that I took in a PDF guide,
Smart.
and then I turn that into a lead magnet and then when I'm in a room, on a podcast, in a Facebook group, it doesn't matter where I am, that lead magnet now becomes a piece of value that I can offer to people that I'm already in rooms with
Yeah,
and say, oh my gosh, here's the solution to your problem. And I can put them in my email list with little to no friction. But that's because I built the email list first. I knew what I stood for and I made lead magnets that aligned with that. So I knew what I was bringing them into before going out into the world and saying, here, have this lead magnet. That
I
is
I I
yeah,
want you to share how simple of a lead magnet it was
yeah,
from a marketing standpoint that you had because you had developed it, but you knew you did it because number one, you needed it, but number two, you knew the avatar that you desire to attract would need it also. Because I want the listeners to hear how easy it is to create an asset, a lead magnet like this.
yeah. Well, I think it's funny because I spent time building a very pretty one that has like significantly fewer downloads than the simple one that was made by my AI tool that was like a document. And
Mhm.
so the one that has had the most downloads and most engagements for me is how I broke up with ChatGPT in a weekend and transferred everything to Claude so
So
that I
good.
could start working on a Monday without any friction.
So good.
And literally it was just a document. Like it wasn't fancy, it didn't have a bunch of links or anything like that. It was just here's the steps that I personally took to make this thing happen, and it was delivered to people's inboxes as a PDF.
Right.
That's it.
That's it. And again, that's how simple this is, right? That's really how simple this marketing can be is understanding the right messaging to land with the right avatar based on where they are on the mountain can build your own media space
Yeah.
fast. It can
Well,
build it fast.
and that one lead magnet has tripled my number of individuals on my email list. Now, my
Mm,
email list was small, but I've still tripled my list from one thing that I made through AI while on a Zoom call because somebody asked me to write down the steps that I took to do the thing over the weekend.
yeah.
Not because I spent a bunch of time, not because I hired out a designer, not because I even made it in Canva. It's a Google Doc, y'all, that I converted to a PDF, but it was that easy and it solved an immediate pain. And so that's the key thing here is that the marketing, the messaging was speaking to where they were on their mountain in the moment, not where they wanted to be and not where you were, but where they were. And so I solved something simple and specific, and that grew my audience. And I've had a few unsubscribes here and there, and that's fine. If
Yeah.
people only want the PDF, so be it. But even with tripling my email list, my open rates are still between 50 and 70% every single week on my newsletter, which
Mhm.
means that I'm still having a good success rate despite the list increasing in size, which means the messaging inside of my newsletter is valuable. And you know what my newsletter's about? The podcast episode I filmed several days and released earlier in the week. So again, I am not making this complicated. I am not saying build some big content machine. I'm not saying hire out anything. I'm not even saying start a podcast today.
No.
But the thing here is start with something simple that you own and then create an opportunity to invite people into it. And at the end of every episode on my website, on my emails, it says, hey, if you want to know more, either respond to this email or go to this website. And so
Mhm.
removed a lot of friction. I haven't put them in a big sequential funnel that makes them jump through 27 hoops. I give them an easy way to continue the conversation with me if they're ready.
Mhm. Love it. And that's the title of this podcast is marketing that works without you. And that's what that is. That
Hmm.
is marketing that works without you. Remember this? I don't remember whether it was a couple weeks ago, a couple days ago. I can't remember. It's all blending in time for me right now. I guess once I got glasses, it's like the old man syndrome just kind of sits in, and I can't remember half the stuff anymore. Anyway, kidding. We found Jess. Remember, we found a lead magnet. Or we found a value add page that I'd created a Bitly link for, which means we can track it. And we opened that up the other day. It's like a time capsule. It had
Hmm.
over 9,000 views, you guys. So people are still out there finding the stuff that we had created because it solves a problem. So if that isn't language of itself, marketing that works without you, that page, which was entry into our blueprint way back in the day, which was probably like blueprint version number 4 or something,
Yeah.
is still getting seen, and it's a private page. I don't even know how they're seeing it these days, but it's at over 9,000 views, which is super cool.
You have the link attached to something somewhere, Adam, but who knows
I'm
what,
sure
where,
I
why, how. And see, this is what's so funny is like you did the bit.ly for your own tracking
yeah,
purposes. I don't even go that far. I just use my domain name. So bigideasmadesimple.com is my domain. And every time I make a new lead magnet, I just slap a subdomain in front of it. So the chat GPT breakup guide transfer to Claude, I literally just made it a URL that I could rattle off in any group without needing a bit.ly link. And I just have claude.bigideasmadesimple.com.
so good.
And anytime I'm anywhere and somebody starts talking about it, I was like, oh, here, I made this a while ago, but you're welcome to use it. And I throw it in there and it's literally a simple form, name, email address. Great, I'm going to send this to you. And that's it. Like, it's not a fancy funnel. I'm not using Go High Level. I didn't pay somebody to build something complex. Russell Brunson would probably cry if he looked at it next to what he teaches for ClickFunnels and 2 Comma Club. But at the same time, I have tripled my list and kept my open rates, which means a lot to me. And I have the opportunity to continue to do that when I live life and solve problems simply for people and create new lead magnets from it.
I see what you just did there, by the way. I see
Yeah,
how you put that into the podcast for the podcast listeners to go find that, go download it, because I'm sure it'll be useful for them. Did I
I,
just, that was really good, Jess Weber.
I don't
That
know what you're talking about.
really, really good. We're going to see a triple, if not quadruple size database.
Let's go, my friend. No,
Okay.
and I mean, but my point is
Okay.
anybody who is feeling overwhelmed by this conversation doesn't need to feel overwhelmed. And so the reason I was sharing it was not to put people in my world, but to show you how easy it is.
Well, they should
And
be
if
in
you
your,
don't know how to do those things, either ask somebody or ask AI how to do the things that I said
yeah,
because they're easy. They're
right.
not difficult. They're not complicated. You don't need to pay somebody to do it. You can have AI write down the steps that you took.
You're true. Very, very true. Okay. Land the plane here, Jess. Land the plane.
Well, I mean, we have lead magnets all the time. We're actually launching a new one. So if you haven't been to ilovecoachingco.com, head over there after this episode drops and you'll be able to see a new one that we're building. And it's the same premise. Ours is just focused on all things coaching and being able to understand and audit your coaching business as a business
Right.
to make sure that you're setting yourself up to grow and scale without scaling the effort at the same time. And
Yep.
that's really what our love and passion is to help people create simple sellable offers so that they can build a coaching business designed around them and how they want to show up in the world.
Yep.
And I mean, we've got a challenge coming up as well. So don't forget to check that out. Same website, ilovecoachingco.com/challenge.
Yeah. Pretty simple. Okay. Nice job there. I have no doubt that this landed for people, and I'm going to give you a little teaser on the next one. Okay, the next one, which is episode number 5, and I believe it'll probably be out of 7. Episode 5. In episode 5, Jess and I will share how we took a database from 13,000 down to 900, and we called it the avatar problem. So we're going to show you guys and explain to you how and why that happened, but think about that. You think you're going to go win the World Series of connecting with people, and you have 13,000 people on a list, and you get to only connect with 900 of them out of 13,000. So come to the next podcast. That will be the next title. Okay, Jess, anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.